Good day, beautiful people. Giving homage and honor to the ancestor and the elder, Miss Henrietta Lacks. If you haven't heard, recently her family won a lawsuit against the pharma or medical company Thermo Fisher, which makes $35 billion a year off of her cell line. And her family is just getting compensation for this. This woman died in 1951. Okay, and they're just now getting their just due. I'm going to read this to you. This is off of the Johns Hopkins website. Right here is a beautiful oil painting that they just did of Henrietta Lacks in 2017. And as you can see down here, it says the mother of modern medicine. Okay, and that's to say the least. This woman's cells has been responsible for great research in herpes, AIDS, and all types of other viral infections and diseases and cancers. Okay, so priceless life. All right. In 1951, a young mother of 5 named Henrietta Lacks visited the Johns Hopkins Hospital complaining of vaginal bleeding. Upon examination, a large malignant tumor was discovered in her cervix. Johns Hopkins Hospital was the only of a few hospitals to treat poor African Americans. Now, I feel that they put this sentence in here to let you know, or to make you think that they were doing her a service because they were one of the only hospitals that actually treated Black people. All right, and as we continue to read, it says medical records show that Miss Lacks began undergoing radium treatments for her cervical cancer. This was the best medical treatment at that time. Her sample were given to a Dr. George Gay at a nearby lab. For years, Dr. Gay, a prominent cancer and virus researcher, had been collecting cells from other patients, but all these other patient cells would die. But Miss Henrietta Lacks' cells were unlike any of the other cells because they would actually double every 20 to 24 hours. So they wouldn't die at all. They would actually multiply and increase. So today these cells are nicknamed HeLa cells, and therefore the first 2 letters of the first and last names. In science, whomever the cells come from, they use the first 2 letters of the person's name, first name, and the first 2 letters of the person's last name. Therefore, you have HeLa cells. They have begun to test the effects of radiations and poisons to study the human genome and other different ailments using her cells. Although Miss Lacks ultimately passed away on October 4th, 1951 at the age of 31, her cells continued to impact the world. Although these were the first cells that could easily be shared and multiplied in a lab setting, Johns Hopkins has never sold or profited from the discovery or distribution of HeLa cells and does not own the rights to the HeLa cell line. Again, I feel like this sentence is a way to cover their behind, because I deeply feel that Johns Hopkins did benefit, even if it was from, some backdoor profits or whatever the case may be. I do feel that they profited and benefited from the distribution of these cells. Rather, Johns Hopkins offered HeLa cells freely and widely for scientific research. Now, whether or not she gave consent or informed consent as we know it today, back then in 1951, no one will ever really know. Johns Hopkins applauds and regularly participates in efforts to raise awareness of the life and story of Henrietta Lacks, having reviewed our interactions with Henrietta Lacks and with the Lacks family over more than 50 years. So you would think that they would help the family get some type of retribution, because you had all of these different pharmaceutical companies making money off of this woman's cells, and her family not getting any bit of the profit. We found out that Johns Hopkins could have and should have done more to inform and work with members of Henrietta Lack's family out of respect for them. Wow, I just said that, and there you go. Their privacy and their personal interests. Though the collection and use of Henrietta Lack's cells and research was an acceptable and legal practice in 1951, such a practice would not happen today without the patient's consent. Again, like I said, back then, you didn't have the informed consent and all of the regulations that we have today, so they were able to get away with a whole lot more, just like with the Tuskegee experiment. They got away with a whole lot more for a whole lot longer when it came to the African American community and medicine. We are deeply committed to the ongoing efforts at our institutions and elsewhere to honor the contributions of Henrietta Lacks and to ensure the appropriate protection and care of the Lacks family medical information. All right, so that's the letter that is on the Johns Hopkins website about Ancestor Henrietta Lacks. And I am sure, since they just won this lawsuit against Thermo Fisher, that Johns Hopkins will probably be trying to save face and do a little bit more, either to help the family or whatever they'll try to do to, you know, take the grime off their face when it comes to this. But yeah, Thermo Fisher is the company, or one of the companies, that has benefited tremendously from the sale of Miss Henrietta Lacks' cells over the years. They, again, make $35 billion a year distributing and selling her cells. And I am so glad that the family finally got some type of retribution for, you know, their family member's body. Is actually, when you think about it, it's her body parts just floating around all over the world, even though it's been very useful in the world of medicine, and I am grateful for it. I'm sure a lot of people are. However, this is egregious and atrocious for it to go on this long, and even for these companies to know it was going on and not try to compensate them in any way. It just shows you the American way, the capitalistic way. Recently, a few days ago, the family won. And I don't know what the settlement was because they're not revealing that. However, I do hope and pray that this is a perpetual award, that this is something that they're going to be earning over, you know, the duration of years and years and years to come. I hope that they get royalties, because if it's a one-time payment, they'll never truly get what they are due and what they are owed if this was a one-time payment, especially if this company is making $35 billion a year off of these sales. But yeah, that's my piece about this situation. I'm glad that she finally got some type of peace for her and her family and recognition on a large scale. But us not knowing exactly how much they got, we'll really never know if they were compensated properly